Well, we can send it to your email. You will not. You will get it later then. And I'm really happy that we can also welcome our second guest here, and it's Biba Rebolj. I can just say very shortly, with her own words, that she runs 3 companies with no sense for business, as she said with her own words, and she's a focus solution trainer and speaker and also a coach. And she comes from Slovenia, if I can say, but living and settled down in London for a long time. So Biba, please welcome our next guest. Before starting the discussion with Biba and Marcus, I asked you if you could just say something about yourself as well, to introduce a little bit more.
Sure. I'll be brief, okay? It's really good to be here with you. You know, we were just having a conversation with you and Pavel that it's always the right people who come. So those are always the people who should have been there. So it's good to be together. And I never, you know, saw myself as anything spectacular or exceptional in any way. Like, I had very average life, no big ups and downs in one way, so this is my perception. On the other hand, if you want a tragedy, I could tell you stories about it if you wish. But nothing compared to Marcus, yeah?
You're younger than me.
I still got a way to go, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I work in London at a private clinic with many young people, referred young people, so they don't want to come and see me through social services, schools, psychiatric units, GPs. So obviously, you know, society or somebody thinks that they need to be corrected, fixed, or their behaviour is not the way to be fitting into the society. So either they would change, or they'll be expelled from school, or well, you know, the route that goes. And you know, before coming to London, I used to work at the University of Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia. Go visit. As a disability officer, so I've been seeing students with physical disabilities as well as mental health issues. And I always kind of struggle with the word mental health issues, because it implies that, again, you are imperfect and you need to be corrected, fixed. And obviously, you know, we who were working with students, we were trained in, say, explanatory theories. I've got a PhD, so I'm supposed to be super smart, but no way. In you know, certain that if something happens to you and you develop certain symptoms, then there is a theory behind it that explains why this has happened, or how this impacts your day-to-day life. And of course, this also has implications of what you ought to do in order to get better. So in theory, it's all clear, but then you see a student, and no theory ever proved right. And obviously everybody's different, so this sort of approach didn't fit, you know, in order to find a proper solution that will work with somebody who kind of needs an explanation and understanding of one's condition. So coming here to London for my research, I ran across an approach that changed the whole thing upside down, and now it's more about, so what do you want, what are your hopes? And referring to what Marcus said, so what do you want different in your life? And that doesn't necessarily have to do anything with the challenge or issue or whatever has happened. That's been done, and you have your reasons for behaving the way you behave, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this needs to mess up with your future. So you can carry on. So this is what I do. I ask people questions, which, if I get them right, hopefully they lead to a better future. Whatever that is, I never know. On the other hand, the young person, their parents, their families, schools, they know much better. So no specialist or no consultant or counsellor or psychiatrist can know better than you do. So, but Pavel asked me, like, why are you in London? And I have no proper answer to this. It's a miracle. It happened. So I've been here for 5 years, on and off, but properly because of Brexit partly, since last year. And it happened as I was recovering from a very, very big and serious operation. So I was on crutches, you know, disabled and such. And I woken up one day at 3 a.m. You know, sometimes you wake up and you've got these shiny eyes and you've got all these ideas coming. Ever happened to you? You know, like sort of illumination. And I saw my passport with the British address. That was here in England. I was doing some teaching here. And I thought, that's weird. So after a couple of hours waking up properly at 8 a.m. or something, I said, okay. And I'm not religious, but I do believe like there may be other things, but I'm not perceptive enough for them to recognize, but there probably is something else. So I said, okay, now whatever, give me a sign, whatever sign. And I went to Russell Square to meet a friend, and always, you know, carrying these baby bags with laptop, so I had one and crutches, and then getting off the tube, I got hungry and I went to Sainsbury's to get some food, and I eat a lot, so there was another heavy bag, and I was like, and the man approaches, a man in his 40s, 50s, I don't know. He comes and he says, oh, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And I thought, okay. I was just looking for a place with a good Wi-Fi, and we went to Pret, and he went to get some coffee, and you know, as he was standing in queue, I thought like, that's very weird. What does he want, my phone number? Does he want to sell me something, or is he a Mormon, or what? It has to be some agenda, you know, behind it. It's very weird. So he comes with the 2 coffees, and so there we go. And he says, look, I've only got 15 minutes because I'm on a lunch break, so after 15 minutes I'm going to leave you here. Is that okay with you? I said, yeah, fine, good. Oh, 15 minutes, and then off you go. And we began chatting. It was a nice bloke. And you know, after 10 minutes I started getting really suspicious, like, okay, when is it coming out? When is it the pitch line? Nothing. It was just a pleasant conversation, and then I couldn't hold on. I said, okay, what do you want? He said, nothing. I just saw you coming out of the tube station and I really wanted to buy a cup of coffee. And I thought, what the fuck? Anyway, I called my supervisor, very good friend. He's 75, so he's lived his life too. And told him the story. And I said, is that common here in London? Is that very usual for Russell Square? He said, it never happened to me. So I knew that was a sign. You know, a sign of being welcome. There we go. And you know, if 10 years ago or something, anyone would have asked me, so where do you see yourself in 10 years? I would never have imagined it, because the truth turned out so much better. And I'm sure you'd have many, many more stories to this, but I wasn't one of those high achievers or wanting to make anything spectacular in my life. It just sort of unfolded with this sort of core. So next thing, and when Irina sent an email 2 days ago, I thought, it's a nice initiative, and you know, I've got a free evening, either I speak with my friends who I speak to every day, or I go and I meet new people. So there you go. You never know where you're going to meet somebody else who's going to get you a cup of coffee and make all the difference. There you go.
Nice story, positive story. Or we can just debate together, yeah, because happiness in my life, what is it? And maybe we can get some practical ideas what we can do, maybe we can find some other solutions, maybe you can share your own stories if you have some, so feel free to actively participate in the discussions if you want. And to start, I want to ask you, in 2019, right? What do you think is the, according to the World Happiness Report, the happiest country? This report is based on how people evaluate themselves, how happy they are in their life. So what do you think is the country where they're most happy?
Denmark?
Denmark?
I think Finland now.
No. Ah, yes.
I've seen it, I've read it in the articles already.
Yes. And it's been the second time, it's twice Finland.
Right.
Yeah,
I think they're even like inviting people over for free for holiday, that like in people that are showing foreigners how to be happy.
Yes. Denmark is the second, then following Norway, Ireland, and the Netherlands. Yeah, just to see the trend. But talking about Bhutan, yeah, Bhutan was the country started first with to ask their citizens about how happy they are, and they keep doing it for years. So, and they even have it in the article. I made a small research in Article 9. Every citizen has the right to feel happy. Yeah, it's in the government should provide it. Yeah, and the people should provide it. So talking about it.
And unless I'm mistaken, Bhutan is the only zero negative carbon country in the world.
Yeah.
Negative carbon.
So this just something to start with that. What do you think? Why is it Denmark? Finland, Denmark, Norway, Ireland, Iceland, Netherlands, and on the other hand, Bhutan and the United Arab Emirates, they have even the Ministry of Happiness. Yes. Yeah, they have.
Yeah, because if you don't agree with them, you get killed.
Yes.
And I think in state organizations, it's necessary that they have happiness managers in organization.
And one company where I used to work, they decided they're gonna have large machine when you walk to work and you have to place the car that you in. There is a big machine with the smiley faces, and you have to push every day when you're leaving work one of these smileys or not happy person, and that's how they done the research, and they wanted to show people how happy they are or no, and they try to do something with this if they're not happy enough.
I can ask for the Marcus. Do you have some experience with Finnish and with education in Finland?
Lots, yeah. Very interesting. The Finnish education is going through an element of turmoil at the moment, because Finland has been a monoculture. So until very recently, pretty well everybody in Finland was Finnish. You know, they spoke Finnish, they spoke the Finnish way and everything else. And then about 5 years ago, Finland opened its borders to a lot of refugees. And so now they're trying to deal with moving from a monoculture to a multiculture. And they're finding it really hard in how to make that transition. Really hard. Because they're used to everybody being pretty much the same. You know, if you ever watch, if you ever look at a Finnish person, they tend to be very self-contained. They tend to be quite quiet. They tend not to be showy. It's not cool to be seen to be very different. So the houses are the same, the cars are the same, the dress are the same. And they're going through a little bit of a change. The education system is based around that. So I remember talking to the Minister of Education and saying, how do you make sure that the kids are eating healthy food at lunchtime? In this country, that would be an interesting question. In the US, that would be an interesting question. In the Netherlands, that would be an interesting question. In Finland, the woman looked at me and she said, what? What?
They're all eating the same.
You mean we would feed them unhealthy food? Why would we do that? And I thought, oh yeah. In this country we have a lot of testing. You know, in the States there's a lot of testing. In Germany there's a lot of testing. In Finland there's no testing. And I said, you don't test kids. You don't have Ofsted, you don't have inspectors. I mean, no. He says, well, why would we do that? Do you want the best people teaching, or the best people testing that they're teaching correctly? We want the best people teaching. So why would we have the second best testing when the teachers are doing their job? Don't be ridiculous. We want the best people teaching. Of course we don't do that. And when you think about it, you go, yeah, that's so sensible. So sensible. But the struggle they have at the moment is moving from a monoculture to a multiculture. But fabulous, yeah, fabulous.
So what steps do they take?
Right now?
Yeah, I mean for this multicultural.
Oh, they've got language training, they've got cultural training, they've got all sorts of stuff. And what they're trying to do, and I don't know, there's all sorts of strange things coming out. The school age is 7. So before 7, kids don't go to school. You know, they go to kindergarten, they play.
Like in Japan.
Yeah, there's a lot of play. And they're finding it quite hard to deal with Somali families who are very much, we need training, teaching. And they're saying, oh, take it easy. And they're finding it really hard to deal with that. Really hard. Because they're very laid back and they have great success. Because kids are unstressed and they become kids. And in other countries, a lot of mental health in this country is a huge problem. In the States, enormous problem with kids being, Japan, kids being really crammed, you know, to pass exams and to do all this stuff. So I can understand Finland, Norway, tremendous countries. Tremendous. Sorry, excuse me, that's a... I don't know that much, but I know a bit.
Thank you.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because as soon as happiness is on the agenda, say political agenda, it signifies how important probably the opposite of it is, mental health. And it's a Western world problem, isn't it? Mainly. And now, I mean, whenever I scroll my Instagram, I see, I guess it's adjusted to me, but it's so much about offline being the new luxury, minimalism, zero waste, simplifying basically everything, paperwork, emails, contacts, job, and we are really going back to basics, which is probably different to going back to, say, I was brought up in Slovenia, born in the 80s, when we were playing on the playground, returning, but it's taking it to the next level, isn't it? I'm not sure how well we're doing, we're trying, aren't we?
And how is it in Slovenia? Like connection, education and happiness, or government, state and happiness?
I don't think they're talking about happiness yet. Or at least not in relation to the rest. There certainly isn't a ministry of happiness. If there would have been, they would have been corrupt.
I'm always nervous about things like that, because as soon as I know something to do with the government, I know that they're going to start cheating. You know, because they want to say we're the happiest country. You will be happy. Jawohl, else you go. And you can always see that. You know what I mean? It's almost desperately trying to measure happiness, as if, you know, as if I should assess you as 9.3 on the happiness scale, but you're 9.4, so you have to get happier. We think, come on.
So I heard about, it was a small documentary on YouTube about railways in Japan measuring level of satisfaction for the employees, and they had, it was similar to what you were saying, but they had a camera where at the exit every employee should grin at the camera. Are you aware of that? And then they were measuring the, you know, and this is how they should have been at the counter selling tickets. Hello, mister, you want a ticket? Sorry, this is stereotyping, but it was, again, saying our employees are happy. But then is that just another, well, mental health diagnosis, if you wish, the pretension to be happy, and then coming back to what you said, what is happiness? Being at ease or being stressed that you need to be happy?
Yeah. If you are not happy enough, don't come back.
Exactly, then you're on low on the scale of happy, not happy enough.
Actually, I study the world of pedagogy, and they keep telling us how the most important thing is that the child is happy to go to school and is happy there. So they're not really bothered about marks and such a things. It's a different system. And they also want children to come when they're 7, because there is kind of philosophy that at 7 the child should be physically kind of done and is ready to think more about learning something more, and start to school. Because before 7 they should be running outside, going to the park, climbing a tree, and this is important for the body until 7 years old. And at 7 you can. So I'm really happy when you talk about Finland, that they start school at 7, not like in England, USA, and somewhere else where normally start school at 4. Like Holland, when I used to live in Holland, I think they start also 4 or 5, very young children. So maybe this is really quite close to the Waldorf philosophy.
I think it's a whole society as well, because obviously here you get 12 months maternity leave, that's all you get, in order for your employer to hold your position. After that, you know, they have to pass it on. So if you only have 12 months, that's nothing. In Czech you have 4 years, up to 4 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can actually stay with your child. You can
but after first 6 months, when you give birth, a child, after 6 months, you can start working like part-time or something.
Yeah.
You can start putting children into just for a few hours. But it's not school system, it's more just like kindergarten.
So jobs are held open for 4 years?
Mm-hmm. In Czech, I think it's only 6 months.
In reality, it works a little bit different.
No, they hold for 4
you
years.
can choose.
They hold your job for 4 years.
For example, if I ask for a job,
crazy.
they can offer me a job and they tell me, yeah, but we employ you, we give you a contract where will be written, you working just until she comes back from maternity leave, for example. So I don't have permanent contract, but I have just
Crazy.
I think it's the right way. Don't you agree?
How can you hold a job open for 4 years? Snapchat didn't exist 4 years ago.
Yeah, for employers.
Yeah, but
this is different.
That's why if we as a woman come to job interview, in Prague it doesn't happen so often. It's discrimination officially. But in reality, whenever I, maybe last 20 years, whenever I go to a job interview, they tend to ask me, are you going to have children or no? Otherwise they don't want me. So we struggle with this because of 4 years. But it's actually discrimination and they're not allowed to ask me this, but it happens still.
Well, it's a straitjacket. I mean, that is a disincentive for people finding a role which pays them, which they're going to enjoy. It almost says your first job is going to be stuck there, because so the average length of stay in organisations is now decreasing. So the average length of stay at Facebook is 1.5 years. The average stay at Google is just over 1.5 years. The average length of stay in most financial services organisations after you've qualified is about 2 years. So, you know, having a cycle that people will stay for 4, 5, 6 years is totally counterproductive to having innovation in any places of work. And I guess that's why companies who try to do that just go bust. Because if you can't reinvent yourself by having new blood coming in all the time, it's never going to happen. And I mean, I run companies, and in my opinion, every day I want the people who are working for me to make a conscious decision to want to come to work. You know, and usually it's the conscious decision to leave, and it's the otherwise I'll stay until it gets so shitty I'm going to leave. I think that's wrong. I think every day this is the place where I want to be, because if you're not like that, you won't drive change. You'll put up with things. You know, you know what I mean? I mean, the world is full of people who are doing jobs they don't want to do, and they do it badly, and we get a really shitty service as a result of it. you know, I think people should be enjoying what they're doing because they know they can always do something else. It's when people don't think they can do something else, then they feel trapped, in my opinion, and then they don't like doing what they do.
But it's quite a lot about the school system, because if children have to at school learn something what they don't really enjoy and just listen to the teacher what he's saying and not really something interactive and such a things, it's really difficult, I think, to start a job and really enjoy it, and maybe all these things that go together with the school system.
Yeah, and I think the school system is not fit for purpose almost anywhere in the world, because the school system is based around people who've been school, normally in a lot of countries they've been to school, then university, and then school. They've never done anything else. So their ability to help young people prepare for the world is really limited, because they have such limited experience of the world. And actually the transition between people who are teaching and people who are working, there's almost a gulf. So when I take teachers in small groups into the world, we're taking them to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley, but if I just take them here, you know, in this country, teachers tend to wear shitty suits, wearing shitty ties, you know, and the rest of the world doesn't wear suits and ties. So what the hell is this? They tend to have hierarchy, you know. The rest of the world doesn't have hierarchy anymore. We now are calling each other by our first names, and if you're no good, then I'm not going to trust you. I'm certainly not going to do what you tell me to do, because I think you're an idiot. In schools, there are people who are idiots, and everybody knows they're idiots, and that has to change. So Google last year, do you know how many people applied to Google for a job last year? So Google last year took 3,000 people on globally. Do you know how many people applied for jobs to Google?
Millions.
5 million. So Google doesn't care about... Sorry?
It's whole Slovakia, 5 million.
Oh, there you go. That's the number of people who applied to Google for a job.
Republic.
And Google doesn't care about your grades. They don't give a shit. Of course they don't. Because how can you pair somebody who's got good grades from a private school in Shanghai against somebody who's got bad grades from somebody who's brought up in a slum in Mumbai, against somebody who is in care in Tooting? How can you possibly? And all organizations want are people who can add value now, not who've added value somewhere in the past or pass some stupid certificate. Does that make sense? So most people are moving away from, most people who are fast moving are moving away from that. And so in this country you've got kids who think school is irrelevant, because it is. You know, because you're taught stuff which you don't want to learn by people who don't know why you need to learn it, by people who aren't very good at teaching anyway. You think, what's the point? When I can get everything online anyway, and I can do Skype interviews, I can do all that sort of stuff. I don't need to learn this shit. And I don't need to learn it in the way that you're teaching it. So when we show kids and give them a glimpse, then they become really successful. How can we get into that? I'm sorry, I'm making a bloody speech again, aren't I? But I think always people go to shops to buy things. You know? 20 years ago, people always buy records. You know? 30 years ago, people will always need to buy books, because otherwise where else would you find stuff? 40 years ago you needed teachers because you couldn't access the information. Today, all of that has changed, except teaching.
So how can we initiate a change? Because I believe it's up to us. It's not about that the government will just suddenly have the vision and wow, we're going to do it. But I think we need to do it from the bottom, yeah, to initiate, because like the parents, the students, the teachers, everyone, as a society, we need to do it. So what we can do? What can be the next step?
I think the alternative school system is good, and if we're going to support it, or parents may prefer to put child into such a, or community schools as well, and other way of teaching, and not really supporting the typical system or the typical schools which are paid by government and everything, because government wants this school. And I can see in Czech Republic how big problem is to open new school which is going more alternative way. Government doesn't want this. They just put you so many obstacles just to open new school which would go other way and not follow the classic system.
In this country, the kids who do best, no, not all of them. A significant number of kids who do really well in exams are those who don't go to school, who are homeschooled, who stay at home. Groups of parents get together. There's no formal school. There's no demand from the state. There's nothing like that, and they just learn how to pass exams. You just have to pass exams, like you have to learn how to wipe your bottom. You know, there's a skill set in passing an exam. There's a skill set in wiping your bottom. So if I can teach you the skills, then you're away. And so in this country we have a big movement of people taking their kids away from school because they think the school is damaging them, and teaching them at home. You know, by going to the park, by looking at bugs.
For example, of parents.
And then going online to, I don't know if you know, there's a university called Johns Hopkins, which is it's one of the Ivy League universities in science, and at the age of 8 you can do an online course. At the age of 8 years old you can do an online course. You can enroll upon a lot of online courses, and each module you pass adds marks towards your grade in an Ivy League university. So at the age of 8 you can start building your own university career, instead, if you want. You know, and in a lot of other countries, you are taught stuff, and at the age of 18, you know, that finishes, and it's ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. And how many of you have been to university and sat in lectures, and you go, this person's got no fucking idea of what they're trying to teach. They don't know how to teach badly. And then you come out with a degree, and you go, I've got a degree. You go, yeah, come on. You've sat in a room being taught stuff by somebody who doesn't know how to teach. I mean, it's reality, you know, we can pretend it's not, but it is reality. So how long is it before we say, that's no longer good? Which is the same as people saying about Amazon, oh, Amazon, that'll never work. You know, I mean, I can go home, and I can go here, and I can order something, and it can be delivered in 2 hours to my house. I mean, come on, really? I mean, how the hell has that happened? And it's happened really quickly, really quickly. I think the same thing will happen with education.
Because by the time child leaves the school, the world is different.
Completely.
And different positions are needed at work and in companies and so.
Completely. I mean, where do we teach creativity?
In Waldorf school.
Hmm?
In Waldorf school and in some alternative schools.
Yeah, but how do you measure it?
Yeah, you don't have to measure it.
No. But in most state systems, you have to measure it.
Yeah, that's the trouble.
So you have to say, you know, you're not as creative as him. He's got a grade 5 in creativity. You know what? How do you measure somebody who's nice? We want people to be creative, nice, good with people, content. That's what we want. Not people who've got a grade in science, which is out of date.
And if you measure someone, it should be measured like how far did you go from point A, not if he's better than you.
Absolutely.
But how far are you moving, or what improvement you able to do.
I think
but
so.
not like measure one person between other.
I think so.
Comparing people.
And probably back to your thing, it's probably, if you're content and happy and if you are comfortable, you'll probably be better. you know, it's Pret-a-Manger, isn't it? Who introduced that every person who works at Pret-a-Manger, if they feel it'd be right, they can give somebody a coffee. If they see somebody coming in and they're really stressed, they can say, hey, have a coffee. They're allowed to give coffees away. You know, Metro Bank as a bank is allowed to give things to people. You know, then you feel empowered. You know, the word is empowered, isn't it? As opposed to the rules say this.
It's quite difficult to change those things because people are really set in their ways. And I quite often talk to people and just say something which throw them. It's like, so why do you think that you have to do this way? Why don't you do it differently? They really kind of stuck, really like can't move them. So if you want to change the system, you have to start with people. But it's not easy, is it? People have to be open-minded. People have to be willing to explore.
It's a flea, isn't it?
And for this, you need proper education, which I agree. Are you Jana? No.
Jana.
You're Jana.
My name is Iveta.
You're Iveta, yeah. What she said, we've got examples of very good teaching practices. They exist all over the world, but we tend to look at the bad ones and what we tend to, I guess, misregard is, has anyone ever heard of VTO GATS? Does that ring a bell? No. I agree with you that the purpose of education, yes, is to make a person feeling happy, content, empowered, all of that. Yes, and also being very, very critical about what's going on, so that they can assess whether the direction, say, that Google, Facebook, and the like are going towards. And VTO GATS is a trade agreement between the US and the rest of the world, free trading, which was signed, the specific one I'm talking about, in 1999. Not many people know this, and its education has been included on the list. You can Google it, and it's quite difficult to find, but you can find it. And that was the moment where education has been transformed from public good, so for everyone, free, basic education should be free for everyone, available, into services. So since then, education is regarded as service. And that means that you can trade with it. And we all know private schools, public schools, and we know how that goes, private universities, public universities, and we know how that goes. In some countries better, in some countries worse. But since then, and we have seen countries going down, because it means that, you know, free markets in education, there shouldn't be free market really. It shouldn't. It should be, I'm not for regulations, but I'm pro education for everyone, so that they develop this critical thinking and just saying, you know, this, we don't want our education to be a service. Excuse me, it's not a service. And if you have a look at these documents, there are also some ways of how to get out as a country of this agreement, how to break it, and it's literally impossible. And every single EU member state has signed it. It went all silent. And we see in the UK what's going on with the marketization of the universities. It's ridiculous what's going on.
What is the publication?
VTO /GATS GATS.
It's nice and easy to remember, isn't it?
World Trade Organization /GATS. It went so silent. And it was a political act, so nobody knows why they've signed it, but here we go, we've got now services. No public good anymore. And then you can see how come we've got bad schooling practices, because they've been pushed into being forced by the economy. And then we've got people who are happy by grinning, having a good life, pretending to have good life, but we've got obeying consumers. Is that the society that we want to be living in? That's certainly a society that's peaceful. As long as we've got Pret-a-Manger and free coffee, we're happy, aren't we?
That's scary.
That's very scary, and I don't want to put you down or anything. It seems to be too late.
Yeah.
And unless people know about it, and then they say, you know what, we didn't agree for this. This was some minister signing it. Why? Can you explain? But if nobody says anything, then we just kind of take this for granted, and we look at the wrong angles. We say, oh, teachers are bad. I don't want to emphasize this. But look at the wrong place. While it's actually somebody else's fault that this has become a thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And of course, many teachers shouldn't be teachers. Not to do this, but many teachers should serve coffee.
So maybe not to finish in the negative point of view, maybe we can share some of the personal tips if you feel unhappy, what to do to be happy a little bit, yeah, because I just want to share mine, and maybe you can join and share yours, personal advices. I don't know if you know NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, because I think it's a great way how we can change, how we can work with our mind, yeah, how we can change the state we are very unhappy and negative, and just like this I can feel happy. I don't know if you ever heard about it, but I can recommend, because there are very easy methods you can learn and everyone can use it. You can even support other people to use it, and you can really basically use the body, mind and language, and you can correct the way when there is some kind of, they call it error. So I can just advise you to really learn something about this. How about yours?
What is it called? Sorry.
NLP.
Neuro-linguistic
Neuro-linguistic.
It's actually maybe something similar, or actually I try to use. I feel like, yeah, how the mindset is so important. It's like, I always say it's really important to be aware and present in the situation where you are at the moment. So, I mean, whenever I feel something could trigger some negative feeling inside me, I try to be aware, and I'm like, and just change it, because I feel sometimes you let the feeling to get deeper inside us, and then you feel everything is really dark, everything is really difficult, everything is miserable, and it's so easy to be kind of stuck in that circle. But I feel when you're aware and you just I mean, everyone knows what makes us feel better in some kind of certain situation, certain, I don't know, memory or something we look forward in. So I feel what helps actually me is to be aware, to be present, and just find out even the trigger. What is for me to start to feel bad, or what is bringing this negative emotion, and just shift it just out of my mind.
Yeah, because when you are not happy, I think it's because you are either in the past or in the future. And when you are in the past, you regret something maybe, and when you are in the future, you feel like
Maybe afraid.
You're afraid, yeah. So when you are here, it's just silence. You are in peace. Yeah.
Some more ideas, some practical tips, how we can get from the unhappy to happy?
I think you have to get rid of fear.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown. I think sometimes people are a little bit scared to say what they want to say, to do what they think they need to do. There are some fabulous teachers I know who are worried that they should be seen to be progressing. You know, they want to teach kids, they want to show kids where the future is, they want to really be great, and they find themselves having to conform with teaching stuff to pass grades or to be promoted, so they just want to teach, they want to inspire kids. And they get a bit nervous that they might be doing the wrong thing. You get some people who know it's so brilliant, and others start overlooking them because they're not seen to be, aggressive enough. You get some people. I think the world is full of amazing people who think they shouldn't be doing what they want to do, and if we can just release them, I tell you, the most amazing thing is somebody who does a job they don't like doing, and then the company goes bust or they get made redundant. and then they do something else, and they go, "Ah, I should have done this so long ago." You know, if we can just bring that forward, maybe everybody's going to be happier. Maybe by accident. By accident. Do you know what's that wonderful? Have you seen? There's a sort of, I want to call him a mate, but he's not quite a mate, who has done these amazing talks on schools killing creativity and all the rest of it. Ken Robinson, wonderful stuff. You want to have a look at some of his work. I think he's had 10 million views on one of his TED talks. But if you talk to a 6-year-old and you say, "Are you creative?" They'll go, yeah, really creative. Talk to a 16-year-old, "Are you creative?" "No, not really." You go, "Well, what the hell has happened?" You talk to a 25-year-old and you say, "Are you creative?" "No, I'm an accountant," or "No, I'm a lawyer." And come on, what has happened to allow us to suppress the inane fun of jumping into a puddle? Do you remember being a kid and jumping into a puddle? Wasn't that fantastic? And you go, "Oh, shouldn't really do that,"
Fantastic when you do it as an adult. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, amazing. Maybe we should all free ourselves from inhibitions.
I think the school really kills the creativity of kids many times.
I think there's a bunch of expectations. Sometimes, do you know what I love doing? I love when people do something. I say to somebody, "Why didn't you do that?" "I didn't think I was allowed to." "What? Who told you you're not allowed to?" It's wonderful. If you give a kid a piece of paper and you ask them to draw something, they tend to draw all over it, including the paper and everything else. You give a 20-year-old a piece of paper and they tend to fit it all within like 3 centimeters away from the edge, just in case. You go, "Whoa, come on." That, have you done that wonderful thing where you have to connect 9 dots by using 4 lines? And unless you go over the paper, you can't connect them. And people just can't do this. They just can't do it. Because we get conditioned. So maybe happiness is to just free ourselves.
Maybe, as you said, we can be more happy by accident. That's what I'm taking from it.
Accidental happiness is fantastic.
Accidental happiness.